Onye Afia, proudly brought to you by Qtix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.
For years, Igbo made was linked to being substandard. That was how we perceived it. Not because the product wasn't good, but because for a certain reason, we had not marketed our products on the scale at which it would have been perceived to be a global product. So we marketed to our neighbors without storytelling and without intention. But the world is rapidly changing. We're coming into that space where it's important for every brand to have a story, where perception decides or plays a huge role in the success of every brand. Today on Onye Afia, we're going to be discussing packaging our products for the global scale. How is that going to happen, and what do we need to do? My guest today is a business consultant in the person of Mr. Chinedu Ifechelobi. We'll be going on a break, and when we come back, we will pick up the conversation. See you soon.
Onye Afia, proudly brought to you by Qtix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.
Welcome back to Onye Afia here on Afia TV. My name is Odera Collins, and like I said earlier, we're going to be looking at how we can package our businesses, our product, and our talent for the global scale. I have Mr. Chinedu with me here today. We're going to be delving into the conversation. Hello, Mr. Chinedu. How are you doing?
Hi, Odera. It's good to be here. It's good to see you.
Same here. Very good to have you. Very good to have you. Now, we're talking about, in recent times, they will say packaging. That's the topic of conversation. And under it is branding, or rather, the professional term would be branding. But what would you define that as, right? How would you define that for starters?
Well, it's I call branding a continuous set of activities and events that has to happen such that you begin to communicate a product or a services or a system's prowess in what they do, positively or negatively at the, in the sense that that process fails, or the people who are trying to communicate these messages or these perceptions fail. It becomes a negative, it gives birth to a negative result at the end of the day. But hopefully it turns out positive. The intent is to, organize these sets of activities, whether simple or complicated, but mostly complex set of activities around a business, around a product, around a service, around a system. It goes even up to, the level of a nation. In the sense that you have to package these or organize these activities, curate these activities in such a way that it projects that system in a positive light, shows it as, a system that carries prowess in its expression, in its personality or functionality, as you may. But basically, in a positive light.
In a positive light. Now, Ngachokai tackle the first issue before we, find a solution. You would quickly realize that for us as Igbo people, oftentimes our products, aside the general perception that things made in Nigeria are not very, they are not of a certain standard, right? So, but for us as Igbo people, we have that as a problem where our products are not perceived as standard, so to say. So you would see things like, oh, it's made in Aba, right? Which now comes off as derogatory, although that, the government and society in general has been trying recently to combat that, right? It's made in Aba. We find out that a lot of our products are not given the accolades or the value that it should have. What are we doing wrong?
First of all, there's a historical perspective to this, we are, first of all, a simplistic people. We're a little bit simple-minded in our processes. The average Igbo man, let's leave it, let me not go to Africa. The average Igbo man just wants solutions. Average Igbo man is impatient. The average Igbo man, has a need and he wants that need met. Sometimes he doesn't even care the process through which this need is met. He just wants his needs met. So he begins to prompt solution providers to just look for a simple way to solving a problem, without, the razzmatazz, the pizzazz, and the gravitas that follows, some processes that we've come to learn. All right. So that's the first perspective to this whole thing. The second perspective is a perspective of neocolonialism. All right. So we had this system. We just wanted solution to our issues. All right. But there's a group of people who came with their sophisticated weapons, their sophisticated, appearances and stuff. And, so that's telling us that the way we did things were archaic and barbaric and stuff. And so they're telling us that there are other things, you want to drink water, you don't have to go to the stream and lap it up, or, take a god, that doesn't have finesse to pick it up from the stream or something like that. Or you can even channel it with pipes and stuff to your house. And, we started now in our mindset, started thinking that, there's something better out there. All right, that ours is not enough. What we can offer, does not have the sophistication of, the colonialists, the colonial masters, if you may, and that, of course, that what we now serve is while simplistic, is we've started considering it inferior. All right, so it's a mentality, in the sense that, okay, if it's Igbo made or if it's African made, because we're simplistic. So it's a battle of perspectives, but we forgot that our original perspective came from our culture, came from who we are, the way we lived our lives, which was simple, as against the superimposition of a perceived superior power, a perceived superior system, on our simplistic system. So that battle, happened. And of course, because colonial masters won, that mentality won as well, in the sense that we started now seeing our products as inferior. Though it solved the problem, but because it didn't come with the, complex sophistication of, what the white man had presented, in that battle of perspectives.
Is it that it did not come with, sorry to interject, but is it that it did not come with the complex sophistication? Or is it that somehow we have begun to see ourselves as less? Because I found out something recently. Someone went digging and they found similar to ceramic utensils that was used in pre-colonial Igbo land. And this wasn't clay. This was, it was a very, it was dated, obviously, so it was a bit difficult for me to decipher what it was. And this was before the white man came here. Yeah. So, we had some form of complexity. So is it that it's just a mind thing, or that we don't have complex processes?
Well, it's a mind thing, and it's the fact that we don't have complex processes. And the fact that we don't have complex processes wasn't a problem, because we were good. All right? We were good. And if allowed the time, we would have, on our own, in our own pace, evolved our systems. We would have. And I can, it's not part of the discourse, but I'll throw it in for a bit. I can guarantee you that, part of the many issues that we are facing, the fact that we can't find solutions, political solutions to our problems and the governance challenges that we are facing, is as a result of the inability to evolve our local systems, inability to evolve our local processes ourselves. We had an interruption on our evolutionary process. That's how I'll put it. Because just like you rightly mentioned, before they came, we had blacksmiths, right? And we had potters, who by their hands used clay and made stuff, exposed it to fire. And as a child growing up, I didn't really grow up in the urban, when I started my primary school, because my parents were posted to an area that still had a bit of, some local touch and all that, so those clays would make your water cold, like really cold. You bring it out from those clay pots and you drink it and it is cold, but of course it didn't come with the sophistication of a refrigerator, that you open, it's white and it's tall, you open it.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit sentimental, but no, because I mean, if you look at the mechanics of architecture, for example, the way you said clay makes the water cold, the houses that we lived in, had proper air regulation. During Hamatan season, it could shield you from the harshness of the Hamatan. During the heat, it was cool. So that's a sophistication. I think that takes a level of, I believe that takes a level of sophistication.
Yeah. So it's perception, right? It's perception. So you were riding on a horse, or on a chariot or a cart pulled by a horse. All right, but then somebody comes with something
With
that
a
has
car.
4 legs. It's not alive. It's not an animal. It's nothing. That that your cart or your chariot was sophistication. All right, but somebody else comes and shows you something on 4 legs and it's not even alive. You can't control it. You have to manipulate it in such a way, and you're fascinated, right? So that becomes sophistication. It becomes superior sophistication. Let me put it that way. All right, or you had a gun that you had to feed gunpowders into it. You shoot it. It's not really directed. It causes some damage, and somebody comes and you shoot it once, and you have to go and pack gunpowder,
Yeah,
and do it, and then shake the, like that until it gets the pressure. Sometimes you miss the pressure, you shoot, it doesn't shoot. As you're trying to shoot at the guy, he's dropped 10 bullets on you. All right, and you're wondering. So there has to be something in what he or she has, that's making it seem like it's more, is superior to what I have, or more effective, than what I have. So that is what had affected that perspective. But I said, like I said, it's an interruption. If we are allowed, we would have by ourselves, discovered our own, evolutionary path. And human beings basically were more or less the fact that we grew from the dark ages, where people ate their fellow human beings or stuff like that. It's as a result of the adventurousness, or the adventurous nature of the average human mind, that it is curious. It sees something different, like it wants to know the reason for it. It wants to push for it. It wants to find a solution, and all that. So we would have, but of course, when you come in contact with something that now seems like it's superior, there's every possibility that you begin to pursue it, and basically abandon what you have, and in trying to find a solution to that perception. That's basically what happened. We came in contact with something that sounded superior and more sophisticated, and we started looking down on what we have.
Right. So
But that's an error anyway, because if I ended that way, it would seem as if okay, that's permissible. It's not.
Completely understood.
Yeah, it was an error, because what you have, your originality is everything. If you lose it, then you lose everything.
You lose everything. Yeah. Now let's take it back to prepping for the global scale, right? How does one, or rather, and remember, we're not just talking about products, we're also talking about talent, right? How do you prepare for the global scale? How do you prepare to launch? A popular film festival would say indigenous to global. So how do we go from our locality to the global scale?
Yeah, I've spoken at different conferences on this matter, business symposia and gatherings and all that, addressing CEOs as regards this whole. The word in my mind is hula baloo. Well, preparing for the world stage,
But it's not necessarily hula baloo.
Well, yes, you can say that, but I I have very sentimental feelings about that, but really for reason.
Okay.
For reason,
What reason?
right? So the first time I had to speak, it just registered in my. The first time I had to speak about this was some years, I think 2017, in Port Harcourt. I was living in Port Harcourt at the time, and when I was asked to talk about building local businesses, for the global arena, I just sat down and calculated the population of Port Harcourt at the time, and it was about 10 million as a city, right? Of course, with the adjoining suburbs, if you can call it that. It was 10 million. And I stood in that, and the first question I asked the crowd was, if you had a business that made a product that would give you, let's say, 500 naira profit per unit, and you sold it to 1 million people every month. 1 million is 10% of the
10 million.
demographic,
Yeah,
right?
demographic.
Will you be rich? Will you be a successful business? And the answer is yes. You'll be a successful business. That means you'll be making 500 million every month. If I'm right? 500 by a million is 500 million, right? So that's success. If you have 500 million as a business, as at 2017, as a business. So now, if you calculate the inflation and all that, you're looking about 2,000 naira profit if that business kept scaling and looking at, of course, upgrading its prices and all that. If you do 2,000 to a million, that's 2 billion. So by our sheer size, and this is part of what has made China an economic giant and global economic giant, and India as well as an emerging economy, economic global giant as well, because by the sheer size of its population, local businesses would need to serve the locality first. Local businesses would need to build to the in-depth needs of its locality first. Because I ended up telling them that you cannot dominate the world if you don't first dominate your locality. It must start from home. All right? If you don't have dominance over your demographic, if you don't have dominance over your target market, all right, you don't have major market share from your, local market, there's no way. No matter how you build, no matter how you position yourself, all right? So first of all, that's what we call glocal. That's what we call going glocal. All right. So you need to build a local business, but equip it with some systems and processes and activities. You understand, in the sense that you're now respecting your locality as if it's a global market.
As if it's a global market.
Right? So when you're pushing out your offerings now, because the world is a global village, your locality is seeing things, that's happening out there, and they desire such as well. So you now need to engage these branding activities around your offerings and engage customer service, customer retention activities. But when we talk about branding, people start thinking about what you need to do so that immediately people see you, they begin to see you in a way. And that is perceived value. But beyond perceived value, there's real value. In that battle of perception, we say ensure that when people perceive and they're walking, okay, the real experience now begins to meet the perceived experience, because they now come with an expectation.
True.
So the mistake many businesses make, I hope I'm not preempting you, right? Because I think we'll still get there. The mistake many businesses make is that they go out there over promise, and then when people come in, they under deliver. So people concentrate mostly on what happens on the outside, what people will see, and then forget about fixing home. All right. So, but we were talking about treating your locality as if it's really that global village that you want. So, you have to understand that you need your demographic analysis. You need to find out, what do my people want? Because what we want in Enugu is not what you want in Washington, D.C.
Very different.
All right. What we want in Oka is not what you want in Texas. What you want in Imo State is not what you want in Birmingham or, wherever. So first of all, because that is the experience that launches you out there. All right. So first of all, you need to understand that there's contextual intelligence that needed to be applied. Okay, so I did this synopsis of contextual intelligence, and when I did my entrepreneurship in emerging economies, Harvard Business School, so it was the final synopsis that we did, case study that we did, in the sense that if you must go global, first of all, you have to grow the habit of studying every locality that you get into. So for businesses that, when we are talking about going global, you must learn about the needs of your immediate environment, solve that need, saturate the market there before you can now start thinking. Because if you don't do it, you try to step out global, you will fail. So you have that consciousness that I must always carry out, contextual intelligence tests to make sure that, I take charge of this locality. So first of all, it is dominating your local market. But with that practice of dominating your local market, knowing that each market has its peculiarities, you can now go out there and begin to, play in those markets as well. But first of all, you must look at home, invest at home, conquer home, dominate home, build a foundation at home before you can step out there.
So you said quite a number of things, and it's more like a redirection from the conversation that we were having. And I like that because it shows that there is not one way to solving a problem. But definitely we'll pick up because I have a few questions following up to that when we come back. Welcome back. You are still tuned into Onye Afia here on Afia TV. And remember, we're having the conversation regarding taking our product and our talent to the global scale. Yes, my name is Odera Collins, and I have Mr. Chinedu with me here in the studio. Now, you said some things earlier, and what I deduced was that, first of all, for you to scale globally, for you to be able to hit the global target, you first of all need to sort out your locality, right, for the products. And as much as I agree with this, the question now is, how do we do that? What are the measures that business owners can take? How can they go about this?
Yeah, so it's now you want me to teach a business master class.
But we can
just answering this question. Yeah, yes. But because it's everything that embodies your business processing, your product analysis, R&D, your packaging, your resourcing and all that, before of course you start presenting your product. But even before you sort out your locality, there's something that I infused into that line of thought, and that is that you need to sort yourself out first. You understand? Because selling to a locality is not just about packaging products and releasing them. We talked about brand perception versus real brand delivery, brand promise delivery. That's the word, that's the expression I was thinking about, because people don't want to experience your story, have expectations, and then come in and start so there's that. It just also dropped in my mind what I ordered versus what I got.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, of course. It happens all the time. Yeah. If you've ever patronized any business in Nigeria, most businesses in Nigeria, right? It's always like that, If a lot of businesses, and then what happens even after that. So it's a lot to unpack. But I'll just say a couple of things. Like I said, you need to do your research. What's your demographic analysis? What does this demography need from me as a business? This thing, whether it's service, whether it's product, whatever it is that I want to give out to this market as value in exchange for their money, how do they want it? What is the problem? How can I solve this problem? And how can I solve this problem sufficiently? In the sense that if somebody comes and I deliver this service or this good, that this service or this product that I'm delivering to this person solves the need for which they walk into this place. And then as they are coming in, how do I deliver it to them? So I talked about customer service, I talked about customer retention, because all these things package the very soul and backbone of your business that you're now going to present to the world. You understand? If your customers walk into your office or get in contact with your service and they are treated badly, all right, there's no way you will succeed out there, because human beings demand about the same thing when it comes to experience. All right, the peculiarities might be different in the sense that an Igbo man might not mind you serving him in a particular way. Let me not just model the whole thing up by bringing it down there, but he might not mind you serving him. So culture comes in, etiquette comes in, a lot of things come in. The way you design a food place in Nigeria might not be the same way you design it in Japan, to ensure that this person comes in and feels at home. All right. So these are the things that, we all have to consider to ensure that, that we are equipped enough. So and then the global market is not forgiving. It's not as forgiving as your local market. Your local market will understand in Nigeria, we can be here and the power can go off. Somebody might panic, somewhere in Houston. If the power goes off on your business, they might think, it's apocalypse.
You know what happened in Europe some weeks back about the power outage and how they all started, there was a panic attack and
exactly.
Just a lot of things, really.
Exactly. So your local market might, forgive you for a lot of things. And so it becomes like a training ground for you as well, but you have to get these things right. your business processes, your structure, your systems, customer service, customer retention, customer communication, really, really important before we even begin to talk about how you present the product or the service, which is also as important. All right. It's extremely important. Of course, we've not even talked about, the naming of your business when you want to get ready for the global market. All right. Because that's also a very, very essential part of it. Most businesses that have tried to, incurse, into the global market always fail this thing because that new colonialism, your name is there and you want to start a fashion business, and then you say it is, you know, D billions couture. All right, something like that. Something like that.
I have reservations about couture.
well, we hear it. We hear it at the end of the day.
Because it's almost as if every fashion brand in Nigeria uses couture, and you're making ready to wear. How is it couture? But
Exactly,
moving on.
right? I'm just saying, it's just a name that popped in my head. But the point I'm making is that an American is not impressed by D billions. He's not interested in it. What are you going to give him that Versace or Louis V or whatever has not in
European
appearance?
brands
So how is it going to sound to him? Why would he abandon the plethora of fashion brands out there doing great stuff to look your way? When even a presentation you're not offering anything different. All right. So as an African business or as an Igbo business, you need to retain your originality. And your first introduction to the market, whether global or local, is your name. All right. So in choosing a name, we need to start seeing more localized names. Everybody wants to funkify, their names and all that and make them sound Western. You're not going to achieve anything, by packaging your brand as a Western brand, because that's not what you are. Like I said, the bane of or the basis of our civilization is the fact that the human mind is adventurous. All right. So if I delve into this, I might also preempt some of your questions. So I'll just leave it here. So the fact that
no, I would like you to. Actually.
Okay. So the fact that the white man, the only thing that will make the white man want to patronize an African business is that you're bringing some Africanness to him. When they came in here and brought all their civilizations, they carted away our artifacts. They took things from our shrine because these were things that they didn't see. And they put it in their museums, and people were paying top dollar and top whatever pound for it. You understand? So why do you think that, a D billions, an American would would patronize a D billions against a Dera or a Chidera, fashion house? All right, because it's nothing you're presenting to him that is different, and then when you're talking about, doing your SWOT analysis and all that, there's what we call a USP, unique selling point for a business, or unique selling proposition, if you may, and that's what it is it embodies everything that you're offering that locality does not offer, or any business in that space hasn't offered before. And it's a requirement for every single business. You can't go into any business without finding a unique proposition that you're offering to the market. And then you want to go global, and the first thing you're introducing to them is something that they already know, or something that it's a sound that they've already heard. So in building your brand, the number one rule, for a local business that wants to go global is that you have to find a brand name that sounds like it's offering something totally different, to that market.
Yeah, I like the the angle of originality that you're bringing to this conversation, because it's very important. One of the key things that we're particular about is our heritage as in Igbo, right? And we don't want a situation where people have to forego who they are because they're trying to blend in, so to say. But now there is also the of course you're familiar with the term global appeal, right? People will tell you, oh no, reorganize, arrange yourself, have a global appeal, right? Matter of fact, it's one of the conversations that has been going on in Nollywood, that we need to make global standard films, right? But now bringing it back to the business space, how can we reach a global appeal while maintaining our cultural identity, right? Because again, it's important to most of us.
So what rules out there in this whole global appeal talk is authenticity. It's originality. All right. So I can't recently, I took a holiday, I think 2 months ago. So, how I do my holidays is I just do something different that I don't do. So I'm always outside. So I stay in for a couple of hours and I watch a movie or two. And something was happening, on a particular platform, streaming platform.
Mm.
I was always choosing movies that was talking about time. I don't know what you call it now.
Time travel?
Time, no, not time travel, like someone is a time loop.
Okay.
You understand? So it's that thing keeps happening and happening. Three Nigerian movies, and I'm like, what's happening here? Why do we need to put on a global streaming platform? We're not telling African stories. It was only one of them that found a way to link it to a traditional process in a village handled by a goddess. Some I forgot so they called it Omenala. So they said, this time loop was instituted by Omenala. And, every time somebody tries to, what do you call it now, go against the dictates of the community, the agreed dictates of the community, that lie or steal or something, the person gets into that time loop. All right. So for the person to recover it and all that, the people who are in the time loop will have to go and also reset that system to its normalcy before they can get out of that time loop. That's the only group of people who tried to do something different. So originality, authenticity is king out there. All right. Like I said, if you're not selling something they don't know to them, they are not going to buy it. As simple as that. So how are you going to do it? You need to maintain your originality. You need to maintain who you are. You need to put your own swing, your own local swing into this product. You understand? In the sense, see here, we can dominate, Africa can dominate the global market by selling our own things to, look at Afrobeats. Afrobeats has dominated the world.
Yeah.
Why has Afrobeat dominated the world? It's not R&B, it's not rap, it's not blues, it's not rock and roll. All right. But now we have infused the originality of this thing. And then, of course, there's a bit of R&B now that is coming out. There's a bit of, somebody calls it Afro fusion, and all that. So you're now fusing, even taking their stuff, but fusing it into the original soul of what you're offering. They eventually everybody gets tired of one thing and starts looking for something new. And that's where Africa comes in. So the potential for Africa dominating the global market is massive. In fashion, in music, in culinary arts. Think about it. Even in of course, I talked about fashion. Our footwear brand, and all that can build our Ankara into sneakers. I'm giving out business ideas for free now. And all that to, of course, dominate the global market. So it's authenticity first. And then build your authenticity into all these things that we talked about, that you used to build yourself and dominate your local market. The only what is it called now, vacuum there, is that authenticity, that African originality, that Igbo, originality. In fact, that we have our Isiago, we have our Ankara, we have our Akwete, the Yorubas, they have their, Adire and all that and all that. We need to package these things and then sell it to the world and watch us blow.
Now, for many businesses, they see branding as, they sort of put it off because, it's expensive. They can't, even as much as talking to a consultant and stuff, it's expensive. I can't afford these things. How can they mitigate that? How can they work around that?
This question is
It's tricky.
No, it's not tricky at all. Okay, tricky in the sense that it's a business limiting question, in the sense that I'm just about to give. Right.
Okay,
You
so they should
understand?
reach out to
They
you.
should reach out and start paying. No, maybe we should put an account details, down there and say,
I'll
while
put
you're
mine.
listening to this, and
I'll put
as you're
mine.
about to apply this, kindly credit this account, with something. Yeah, because there's always that challenge, especially for SMEs, which is basically what we have around in Igbo land. People trying to fuel their hustle and build something, and then start growing it from there. The truth is, business always, SMEs mostly survive on minimalist injections. Let me put it that way. In the sense that you must start with what you have, and not try to overreach.
Yeah.
Because when you start overreaching, you start bearing a burden of debt and all that. And debt is always, of course, they say at a level, debt is a fuel for big corporations. But for SMEs, debt. That's debt is it's a danger. It's a threat, to a business, because of course it begins to affect your bottom line, and stresses and distracts you and all that. So it is required. It's advised that you start with what you have. And like I said, I already said one of them. You must choose a suitable name. Sit down, do your research, choose a name that while it sounds local, it doesn't sound offensive. It would also go smoothly, with anybody who eventually, when your business grows and is ready to go global, it sounds good in everybody's ears. It's interesting, it's punchy, it awakens curiosity, and it awakens that curiosity in the sense that it has to sound local. It has to sound like there's something original that you're offering in the first place. So you do that, and then you package your processes. Customer experience is key. It's actually everything. That's what makes customers to come in. Most people make that mistake of, let's go sell on social media, let's push out, let's do this, let's create, make a lot of noise. Some people make noise that is bigger than them. And it makes the customer experience, the first part of customer experience, a disappointing one. Because you go out there and you create this facade of how big you are, how massive you are. And then I call you and say, I want to visit your office, and you're dodging me. You understand? You don't have an office. You're selling from home, and there's nothing wrong with that. You understand? So sometimes the noise you make is bigger than the experience somebody gets. So we say,
how do you measure? Sorry to interrupt, but
Mm.
how do you measure? How do you know, oh, I'm making too much noise?
Yeah, but in planning it, in setting it out, some people spend their last, the money you spend in building and developing a product. I said R&D. R&D is research and development. The money you spend in, a lot of people don't research anything about their businesses. Somebody just wants to, let me say, I don't know how to, but maybe enter into fashion or something. You understand? You just go out there and say, is it not to make clothes, or is it not to get someone to make clothes for me and put it out there and start selling? There's no research. You're not, asking, what does this demographic want? How do I package it? How do I make sure that, when they wear it, it doesn't tear, or, or it doesn't fade or something? How do where do I get my materials? And, timing as well. If somebody comes in and I say, okay, you get it tomorrow, how am I supposed to make sure I deliver on this time? You understand? People don't care. People just feel, oh, this is the new cool. This is the new one that is making money. Everybody's making small chops. Let me go and start making small chops. Everybody's selling whatever, parfait or whatever. Let me go and start selling parfait. Everybody's selling hairs. Let me go and start. No, 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 no. You must do your research. You must even also spend money in doing your research. You must consult us, the business consultants. We are the ones that will set you out. We are the ones that will tell you, this is what you expect at the beginning. This is what you expect midway. This is how you package your business for the next level as well. This is how you set out. A lot of people also just want to start in a very grand way, but there are no structures, there are no systems, there are no processes infused into that system to ensure that as you're starting in a grand way, it's just like building a foundation for a bungalow and you're putting a 2-story building on top of it. It will eventually crash, right? So that's why it is totally necessary to prepare first. Get yourself ready. Branding, like I said, is a set of complex activities. It's not just when you now start showing people that you're here. Before you even start showing the people that you're here, what foundations have you built? Have you, done your housekeeping? Is house ready? Is your backbone strong enough to carry what you're inviting? So it's extremely necessary to do that. So under promise and over deliver. Don't over promise and under deliver.
Now, if we're going to talk about, using tools, again, we were trying to say, oh, what is, affordable means? That's what we're trying to say. And this is our last question, unfortunately. But how can businesses in this region, how can they leverage social media to scale globally?
Yeah, social media is one of those tools that makes it a little bit easier for businesses, but anytime we want to jump into this global thing, there's this local or global thread that keeps pulling my heartstrings back, So use it, dominate your locality first, all right?
Mhm.
And of course, learn the ropes, learn, brand communication, brand promise, your unique selling proposition, how to communicate that, because these things are skilled, right? Some people have unique selling propositions. They don't, I've sat people down in interviews, and branding is part of these things. Even in trying
Mhm.
to get a job, right? You need to package yourself well. You need to project yourself well. You read someone's CV and then you say, first question, tell me everything about yourself that should convince me that you're the best person for this job. And they start talking about something else. But you've looked at their CV and you've seen the selling
It's quite
points there,
weighty. Mm.
but this person is totally going off gradient and communicating something totally different,
Mhm.
So business owners should learn this, that there's something called brand communication and you need to be skilled in it. You need to, of course, you're aware of what your USP is. You need to now hold on to it. And that's the first thing you present to the people when you're out there. So of course, I'm about to talk about social media, but everything, all that's coming into my mind is the mistakes I see people make on social media. You see a business owner begging people to come and buy. Say, please, oh, my just gave birth, my baby needs to eat.
Mm.
That's not what you're selling. Hello, you understand? That's not your unique selling proposition, right? While we care about your baby, but can you tell us the value that we're going to get when we exchange our monies with you? All right. So this is extremely important. That we understand first of all, how to communicate, but before that, what are we communicating? And that's the uniqueness of this business, the offerings that this business is making, the solution that these products or services will bring to an average client or customer or consumer, and when you have, you know, discovered what this thing is, and then you need to think about how to project it, and the best way to project it. And the best way to project it is sell on your strengths. You understand? Don't talk about your weaknesses. Don't present a weak front. All right. So social media is great. Social media is good. And of course, work with professionals. Don't just do it alone. Of course, when the fund is not there, you can go get the training for yourself. You can go try your hands, around stuff. But if you want optimized result, then you must. That's one, advice I don't ever fail to give to SME owners. You must work with professionals. You understand? Find a way. If you have to make someone like a part owner of your business, say, okay, these are the potentials. Come, sit down, we'll draft something. I can't pay you now, but if you do give me this service and this business starts paying, whatever this thing brings, I can share this.
With
So
you.
it mustn't always be an exchange of money when you're working with a professional. There are other values that you can exchange with the person. If you're a fashion person, I don't know why I keep talking about fashion, but if you're a fashion, house owner, you can say we'll close you for a whole year. We can't give you money now, but we can close you for a whole year. Whatever you're giving as value as per business, you can use it in exchange, but always look for professionals who would help you, learn the ropes. I would, pop in a scripture there. In Ecclesiastes, it said that the labor of fools weary them because they do not know the way to the city. All right. So labor is not what is key. What is key is strategy. What is key is wisdom. What is key is knowledge. The knowledge of the way to the city, the knowledge of how to get what I need to get. So
Mm.
when you work with professionals, they've walked that path a million times. So they already know the established path to success. They will take you through it. You can also look for mentors and all that. So the fact that in social media, everybody feels it's out here, I can use it the way I want and all that. You can use it in a way that is inimical to your business success.
Mm.
And then it starts, it comes back, to bite you. It comes back to hurt your business, as against that. So while it's a great tool for going global, you need to package yourself well again. So you can see us always going back to say, look inwards, arrange your house, build the right foundations, build the right backbones, invest in the soul of your business. In every business endeavor, you must invest, you must straighten, you must smoothen, you must get some finesse before you step it out, before you step out to the rest of the world. So you can capitalize on social media. It's easy. You can say something in Enugu here, and someone in Seattle, will hear it, will see it, and will be interested in what you're doing. But you must make sure that you're selling the right thing and you're selling it in the right way.
In the right way. Thank you very much, Mr. Chinedu. It's been interesting having you and very insightful, like emphasis on insightful, because there are a few things that I even picked up today, for my own personal brand. Thank you so much.
I'll be sending an invoice soon.
Oh, no problem. You can send it to our producer.
Sure, she's very capable.
Yeah, very able and capable. And on that note, we have come to the end of today's episode. You have heard it. Branding is not just about the packaging. It's not just about the outward look. You have to do the inner work. And don't forget your originality. Don't forget marketing to your locality. Until next time when I come your way again, my name is Odera Collins, and it's bye for now.
Onye Afia, proudly brought to you by Qtix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.